example, what we got here is basically a list of a bunch of dates that I've used examples, and I've been making this sheet. This is just example ones I've done for videos or something like that. So it's got random dates in there, but all of the games for the dates are all done like previously, as in like, for example, the games on the 1st of December were all run before the 1st of December, so all the data is accurate for every single game in here, as you can see. This has everything you need, and we also have a graphic version. This is just like the back end, but in the front, so this is the, well, sort of, if you were using it, for example, you just press that button, as I have to press and hold the Alt as it says there, because I'm just using it in the bit where I designed it. But if you press show graphics, you get all this in a graphical view. It's quite cool. But today we're going to focus on, and also, not that it's important, but you can rank, you can like get a ranked thing. So if you want to go by stat of all the games on that date, both teams to score, yes, we just get a list of all both teams to score and like the probability of it happening. Quite cool. But today, as I say, we're going to focus on this bit here, which is our 15-minute analysis. Depends which way you want to look at it, like that or like that. So, for example, Lillestrøm, so Borgen versus Lillestrøm, you've got a 15-minute, 16 to 30, 31 to 45, 46 to 60, 61 to 75, 76 to 90, for example, in there. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use that and see if we can predict football matches times of first goal. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with this, as you can see here, just, I don't know why I've included it twice, but just depends which way you like to see it more. And what we're going to do, for example, first off, is just to show you how I've tried to model this. This does use quite a big assumption in this, so I don't think the data will actually be that good, but I'm just going to show you how I would work it out if I was doing it. So we're going to focus on 0 to 15 minutes to start with. As you can see here, 19%. What we're then going to do is to get the probability of a goal in every specific minute from 1 to 90. What I'm going to do is just divide each of these by 15. So, for example, for minutes 1 to 15, it's just 19 divided by 15 for every single minute, which of course is a massive assumption, but we're going to have to just deal with it for the time being. For 16 to 30, it's just 35 divided by 15. So, for example, 16, 17, 18, all the way to 30 will all be 35 divided by 15, and so on and so forth. So let's just take our 0 to 15 as an example. So what you can see here is, as we said, it was 19% in there, or the exact value is 18.667, just in case anyone has a hissy fit and asks why the figures are wrong, because I know some of you are very nitpicky in there. What you can see now is, you can't see this because it's all a bit cut off, but what you can see there is minutes 2 to 14, and you see every single one is exactly the same. The formula is literally probability of a goal 0 to 15, which is our 0.1867 divided by 15 all the way through. And as you can see, that is exactly the same for not only 0 to 15, but 16 to 30 is the same there, where 16 to 30 divided by 15, as we said in there, all the way through to minute 30. So that's how we've done it. As I said, that's a massive assumption, but we're going to have to just run with that and see how well we get on with the video there, because it is slightly difficult to get exact times of first goals in there, as we see. So let's just use that example in there. So now that we've got that, we have now predicted probability of every minute from 1 to 90, although, as I just mentioned, it is skewed data. Given this, it is a little bit tricky, but we're going to try and now predict the time of the first goal. Now, there are multiple ways of doing this, but for the purpose of the video, we're just going to use a simple approach. You could do in terms of waiting times and stochastic processes and stuff like that, if anyone knows what that means. But in this instance, we're just going to use a very simple approach just to explain how I would do it to you guys in there. So, given that, what we're going to do is we're going to run this live example, and I've basically created this formula in there, which looks really, really confusing. And it doesn't look simple, but it actually is when you break down what it actually means. I'll try and explain it as best I can. If you don't understand, you might have to rewind, go back in the video and try and understand a little bit more. But we'll try and explain exactly what this means very simply in layman's terms. So let's start again with the formula we've just described there. So we're going to take that formula in there. And essentially what we're working out is the probability of a goal in minute I. So let's say we want to look at the probability given the minute is minute 20, for example. Then I would take the value of 20. Okay, so anything here that says I would take the value of 20. So I equals 1 to 20, whatever in that instance. And essentially, what we're going to do is for minute I, so GI, essentially the probability of a goal being scored in minute I. Okay, so probability that in minute 20, a goal is being scored. And remember, we already have that data in the spreadsheet anyway that we just calculated before. Then also the purple bit here is no goal being scored before the ith minute. Okay, so no goal being scored between 1 and I minus 1. So essentially no goal being scored between minute 1 and 19, which is what we see here in the purple. So essentially this is the sum from j equals 1 to 19. And then 1 minus GJ is obviously the probability of no goal being scored, given that G is probably the probability of a goal being scored. Then 1 minus G is clearly the probability of no goal being scored. This is just the product, which is what this bit means here. So we're going to basically do the product of all of these. So all the minutes beforehand. So minute 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 19 of no goal being scored times them by each other. And then obviously times that by probability of a goal being scored in minute 20. And that will give us this bit. Then all we need to do is times that by I. So that's the minute. So times that by 20. And obviously we'll do that for each minute. So for minute 21, you do same thing here. So you'd sum from I from 1 to 20 in there, and you times that by the probability of goal being scored in minute 21, and you times that by 21, and all the way through, you do that from 1 to 90, all the way through, and all we're going to do there is just sum up all the values from 1 to 90 of I times by no goal, times by goal, etc. in there, and that will give us our expected minute in there. I say that looks very, very confusing. So let's run through a live example using Bodo Glimt versus Lillestrøm. So before I get started though, please remember that this is slightly easier than you think it is because you've already got the goal of probability of a goal in minute I. Our GIs are already in the spreadsheet as we just showed you by being like the divided by 15 for each minute. So let's go and do a live example now to explain to you how I would do this. Okay, so as mentioned, the Tableau dashboard has like a bunch of data. It's basically all these games in here. This was just run before every single game, and this is just an example one. I say my main one has every single game I've ever done in my life on there, but this is just one that just has random dates on there when I've been testing little things out. So every single bit of data was accurate before the game was played. So it was all ran before the 1st of December, for example, in these ones, or before the 31st of May, or before March, that sort of thing in there. And essentially this has all the data that goes into the dashboard, including the bit at the end here, which is probability of a goal 0 to 15, 16 to 30, 31 to 45, 46 to 60, 61 to 75, 76 to 90. By the way, this should actually be 1 to 50. I don't know why I included 0 to 15, because obviously there can't be a goal in the 0th minute, but that's not important. So there's 290 games, I think, here. There are, yeah. But basically, when I went to look at the time of the first goal in every game, because I had to sit there and do it manually. So please like and subscribe, because that took me ages. But essentially, there was 11 games in the end that was postponed over the Christmas period in like the Scottish lower leagues or the English lower leagues, basically based off really, really bad weather, as you can imagine. So in the end, there's 279 games that we've got in our minute of first goal. So as I say, what we'll do now is we'll just focus on this first game. I've hidden the other 278 games, and we're just going to focus on Bodo Glimt versus Lillestrøm, as I mentioned. So in here, obviously, we've got the probability of a goal in each 50-minute period, as we just mentioned. That's just copied over. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our formula, and you can see here, our probability of a goal in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 15 is all going to be that 0 to 15 over 15. 16 to 30, as you can see here, is just that all the way up to 30 minutes. You get the point, and so on and so forth. So that gives our probability of a goal in each period. As I say, this is massively skewed, and it will not give us a great answer. So I don't expect the answer at the end to be very good, because obviously we're making a massive assumption, but you get the point anyway. What we're then going to do is we're then going to scroll along here. So that's completed all the way to minute 90. Now what we need to do is go back to our formula. So we have all of our blue ones, as I mentioned in there. So we'll give that a tick if we can do. So now what we're going to do is focus on these purples. So now we need to find out the probability of 1 minus G, okay, of GJ. Essentially, the probability there's not going to be a goal in each minute. That's just basically 1 minus the probability that there is a goal, which we've already calculated. And then basically we're going to take a product of all the ones before that, if that makes any sense. And I'll just show you how we're going to do that in Excel. So the first minute is a little bit different. So as you can see, the minute number 1 there, so no goal before minute 1 is obviously 1, because obviously 1 minus G of J is obviously just going to be 1 minus 0, because the probability of goal is scored before minute 1 is obviously 0, because it's impossible. Therefore, no goal before minute 1 is 1, because it is certain. That's how probability works. So the first one is a little bit different, but it is a 1, okay, in there. Whereas for no goal before minute 2 is essentially no goal before minute 1, obviously, times by the probability that there's no goal in minute 1. So it's always the one beforehand, if you remember. So we always said that J is obviously I minus 1 in there. It goes up to I minus 1, as we saw in our formula. So probability of no goal before minute 2 is probability of no goal before minute 1 times by the probability of 1 minus a goal in minute 1. So times by, so no goal before minute 1 times by no goal in minute 1 and that'll give us our probability there of no goal before minute 2. For example, I know it's a little bit confusing, but for example, no goal in minute 20, as we said before, we'll go on that one, is no goal before minute 19, which is obviously a summation of all the ones beforehand, so it's a product of all the ones beforehand. So no goal before minute 19 times by no goal in minute 19, and that'll give us the probability of no goal before 20. Does that make any sense? Or for example, 32, for example, is the probability of no goal before 31 times by the probability of no goal in 31, and therefore that'll give us the probability, as you can see here, we'll go 31 with the red one in there, and that'll give us the probability of no goal before 32. That's how it just works. It's very simply, it's basically the product of no goal any minute beforehand times by no goal of the minute that were one before, and that'll give us the probability of no goal up until that minute. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, just watch that back and say it literally is just a case of no goal in before 31, no goal in 31, therefore that makes it no goal before 32. Hope that makes sense. So we've continued that all the way through until minute 90, as you can imagine. And in there, that'll give us until minute 90. Okay, so now we have probability of no goal scored before that minute. And we also, if you think back to it, we also had the probability of goal being scored in that minute, which is what we had at the start, which brings us to our next point. So again, minute 1 is slightly different, but for minute 1, probability of the first goal being scored in minute 1 is literally just the probability of a goal in minute 1, because obviously then there's no chance of it being beforehand. So again, that one's a little bit different, but as you can see here, probability of a goal being scored in minute 1. So minute 2 is where it gets a little bit different. So for example, in here, the probability of a goal being scored in minute 2 is the probability of no goal being scored before 2, which you can see here, which is our red. As you can see here, so no goal being scored before 2, which if we go back to this, is literally a case, this purple bit here, so no goal being scored before minute 2, times by probability of a goal being scored in minute 2, which is what K2 is. So if you go to K number 2, K2 I should say, which is here, which is a goal being scored in minute 2. Very simple, just like that. So if we go to minute 38, for example, here, if we go back to our formula on PowerPoint, so for minute 32, this bit here is basically just no goal before minute 31 times by a goal being scored in, so no goal being scored before minute 32, so from 1 to 31, times by a probability of a goal being scored in minute 32. Hope that makes sense. So here, if we open it up, so minute 30, yeah, I might have said 32, but you get the point. We'll go 32 because I think I said 32. So 32 there is no goal being scored in minute 32, which is the red bit, which you should see in what, 2 seconds. There it is there. Times by AO2, and AO2, as you can see here, AO2 is probably the goal being scored in minute 32. Very simple, and we just continue that all the way along until we get to 90 minutes. So at this point, as you can see, we've got most of what we need, but the next thing to do, as you can see here, is just times that by J1, which essentially is, so GH2 is the probability of the first goal being in the first minute, times by J1, and essentially J1 is just the column header of the minute that we're looking at. So in this instance, it is minute number 1, okay? And the reason we do that, and I'll show you that now. So in PowerPoint, remember, all we've got is our probability of a goal being scored in minute 1 or whatever minute is this bit here. It's in the square brackets, and we're timesing that by the minute, so I. If that was 32, that would be the probability of the first goal being scored in minute 32 times by 32. I'll show you that in Excel. So let's continue that till minute 32. So minute 32 there is this minute here. So that literally is the case of HM2, which should be the probability of first goal being 32, as you can see here, times by AO1, which should be the number 32 or the minute 32. Let's have a look in there. AO1, once we get there eventually, AO1, there you go, is 32. So that's all we have to do in there, and that's basically just all done apart from this squiggly line here. So we said that was the product. So we've done basically from here all the way to here, and we worked it all out, but this essentially is the sum from 1 to 90 of all of these together for every single I from 1 to 90. So all we're going to do is take everything we just calculated before for each minute and just add it all together for every single minute from 1 to 90. Essentially, that's just giving us an average because doing the probability times by the minute. And therefore, what that'll give us there is that'll give us a total sum of like some value of when the first goal should be scored. I assume because it's all within a range, I assume the average time of the first goal is normally what 27, 28 minutes. So I think this will probably range between 15 and 40 probably in terms of how the range will go. But we'll have a look now. As I said, I don't think this will do very well, but I'll be happy if I get like anywhere between 5 and 10 exactly correct. So let's have a look. Okay, so now if we just move over to the very end where we've gone like to 90 minutes, let's have a look. As you can see now, the predicted minute for this game is 33, which is literally just a case of summing up every minute from like 1 to 90 that we've just calculated there. And as I just said, we're just going to round that so that it's nice and neat to like the nearest number. So whether if it's like 32.1, we'll go to 32. If it's like 32.9, I'll go to 33, that sort of thing in there. And as you can see, that'll give us a predicted minute of 33 minutes. Now what we can do is we can take our actual minute, which as I say, I had to sit there on SofaScore and go through every single game. So please comment, like, and subscribe because it took me absolutely ages. In this instance, it was the 12th minute. And then I basically gave myself a score of the difference, which is the reason I've got absolute here is it doesn't matter if it's 12 minutes higher or 12 minutes lower or whatever it is, or 21 minutes higher or 21 minutes lower. So in this game, our predicted minute was 33. We got a score of 21 for the difference because it was 21 difference in these two. But if the predicted minute was 33 and the actual minute was what? 21 higher than that? Like 54? If it was 54, we'd still get 21. That makes sense. So it's always going to be positive. It's just the difference between the two digits, if that makes sense. So what I'm now going to do is continue this for every single game from game 1 to game 279, which is what I've got here. I'm going to unhide it. But comment down below what you think we've got. If we've done well, if we've done badly, how many you think we've got correct. As I say, I'll be kind of happy if I get like between 5 and 10 correct because, as I say, there's a massive skew in the data, but the method we have used is quite cool as well in there. So let's unlock every other bit of data. So let's just unlock this here. And that should give us all of our games from game number 1. Should give us 279 games. Perfect in there. And as I say, we took a sum across, and these are the minutes that we got for the first goal. So as I said there, I thought it would go between, what did I say, 15 and 40. So let's have a look here. So what, 17 and 38. So that wasn't a bad guess, to be fair. As I say, I knew it would revolve roughly around 27 because in the past I've known off the top of my head that roughly the first time the first goal was roughly 27 minutes in every single game. So that's not too bad in there. So the actual minutes obviously are going to be give us quite a hard way of scoring this because as I said, as you can see here, 30 and 30, we got this one bang on. So the difference in there is perfect. But for example, in a game where the first goal was scored in like the 88th minute and we predicted like 30, we're going to get a massive score of like 50 odd. However, if there's no goal being scored, I've essentially set that to be 90 minutes, as in the actual minute of the first goal being 90, even though there was no goal. Otherwise, we won't get an answer and we can't just ignore those from the data set. But if it's 0-0 and we've said like 30 minutes, we're going to get a score of like 60, which is massive. So the average score that we got is actually quite impressive. We got 21.08. I don't think that's that bad considering there's games like this where the first goal was scored 81 and predicted 22. Like 59 minutes is a massive difference and that does skew it. So, like, of course, 21 isn't amazing, but I'm quite pleased with that. Let's see how many games you got exactly right. So let's just have it 0 as the difference. So I think that's 8. Is that 8? 8 games exactly right isn't actually terrible, to be fair. And what I've done is I've actually plotted. What I'll do is I'll plot that in there. Okay, so I've plotted our exact like histogram of distribution of what we got. And so we got 83 games, which is what's that? 8 equals 83 over 279. 30% of the games we got like within 10 minutes.